Hello everyone and welcome. Let's begin. Our BL webtoon starts with a nervous male figure looking shabby in a hoodie and sweatpants, giving himself a pep talk to gather the courage needed to step into a hair salon. Yep, you heard me right, hair salon. His sweaty hand finally grabs onto the door handle and his fidgety figure makes his way in when the hairdresser inside inquires if he has an appointment scheduled. The hair salon is a small one, with just the owner as a staff member. Disheveled and trembling, our potential customer goes into chicken mode, pondering the idea of backing out of the hair salon endeavor. However, his body reflexively takes his hoodie off and hands it to the hairdresser when the latter asked for it. He then invites our guy to take a seat. By the time his thoughts caught up with his actions, he realized he has to go through with it at this point. He nervously takes a seat, with his scared puppy eyes and messy long dark hair, still debating his decision. We are taken back to the events that happened 1 hour earlier at the well-known restaurant where our protagonist works as a dishwasher. The restaurant owner uncomfortably requests for our guy to improve his appearance, make it neat and tidy, presentable, that thing. Apparently, some of the restaurant customers posted selfie online, and in the background our guy can be seen while doing his work. However, his appearance resembling that of a homeless beggar suscitated a lot of negative comments, therefore negatively influencing the restaurant's reputation and business income. The boss lady promises him an extra on his salary for the request. He reluctantly accepts. On his way home, he considers his options. He doesn't want to quit since he likes the job, has no issues with the staff, and the restaurant lady is nice to him. He decides to do what most young men in the modern age would do: browse the internet in search for ideas on how to tidy up his appearance, and concludes a haircut is a good start. However, the thought of going to a hair salon makes him anxious, so anxious that in the past he used to cut his hair himself, just to avoid going there. But since the self-done haircuts looked bad, he resorted to just let his hair grow. Recollections of the time he last went to one just sent shivers down his back. Therefore, he shakes his head in the attempt to chase away fearful thoughts, hoping things would get better this time. Determined, he finds one with little to none clientele and just one hairstylist. Odds are, it's located right in front of him. After a little looking around, he finds it with a gulp of fear forming in his throat. Our protagonist is brought back to the present moment by the hairstylist with a dreadful question. "How would you like your hair done, sir?" Panic and anxiety exude out of every pore of our guy while responding to that inquiry. After deciding for a neat haircut, realization dawns on our trembling dude. Without other customers around, he's even more anxious, especially since the hairstylist is blindingly handsome. Random hair-related conversation starts. However, our dude is struggling to find his words coherently due to the distraction from the hairstylist touches on his head. The reaction, combined with his skin doing chameleon tricks, turning tomato red, confuses the handsome hairstylist. Can't blame him. Silently, he gives himself an encouraging pep talk to pull his shaisa together. The hairstylist, still confused, attempts to calm his nervousness down with a nice shoulders massage. It helps with the trembling, but the blushing ain't going anywhere. It actually gets worse due to the hairstylist's playful fingers. All that fidgeting from touching one ear? Not suspicious at all. Nope, not at all. Finally, the conversation introduces us to our protagonist's name, Hong Dan-woo. In the hairstylist's mind, a Korean word's play is thought of due to the pronunciation of Dan-woo's names that resembles parrot, used as a metaphor to describe people that blush profusely. While the haircut is ongoing, the conversation between them proceeds with an apology from Dan-woo for coming at closing hours without an appointment, and other courtesy chatter, all while Dan-woo twitches and flinches like nobody's business. The hairstylist clearly makes use of sarcasm by asking to be made aware if our guy is uncomfortable, when even the blind can see him shaking like a leaf on a windy day. LOL. Dan-woo is aware he is not fine, thinking that it's been so long since he has been touched by anyone. I don't mean it in a kinky way. We'll get to that later. However, even if there is nothing kinky happening at the moment, the effect on Dan-woo is clearly of that variety. All he can do now is hope that the hairstylist doesn't notice. So far, he seems ignorant to the fact. After the cutting is done, they move on to the blow drying, another thing that brings anxiety to Dan-woo. By the time it's over, our guy is dizzy with arousal. He snaps out of it to admire his new looks, with short hair, neat and tidy, all stylish, put together, nice, he looks nice. In his amazement, he moved his hands and a protruding bulge became visible on his lower body, under the gown. Even if the hairstylist could feign ignorance before, there was no way he would pretend not to notice it now. I mean, come on. The shock on Dan-woo's face is hilarious. Rushing to cover that bulgy body area. With an apology, he jumps out of the seat and out the door, with the gown still on, leaving behind an expressionless hairstylist that bursts into a chuckle soon after, finding him interesting. A tiny bit later, he remembers about the, now gone, gown. The scene changes to Dan-woo's hastily return home, still in the hair salon's gown, panting and huffing due to the arousal from earlier. After locking the door upon entry, he doesn't manage to proceed any further into his home, but slumps right at the entrance, all worked up by the feeling of having his hair touched earlier. It is safe to say, dude got a hair-related fetish. He engages in solo lightsaber polishing activities, and as soon as post-nut clarity sets in, he plops in fetal position, mortified by the shame from the hair salon events, wishing for the earth to swallow him whole. He remembers he didn't pay for the haircut, forgot his wallet and sweatshirt there. So he has to meet the hairstylist again, inner screaming at such horrifying thought. And so, the night goes by. The next day, at the restaurant, he awkwardly shows up, getting flustered by the boss lady compliments for his new looks. His appearance is so different from before that one coworker mistakes him for another, and startles him with a grip and friendly gesture of a head rub. Wait, that don't sound right. It's kinda sketchy. It's not sketchy, I promise, YouTube gods, please be merciful. Hair ruffle, better way to put it. Anyway, at Dan-woo's pleads for release, the coworker realizes he got the wrong person when the intended one enters the workplace. In a panic, he releases Dan-woo from his tight grip with an apology. Shaking, our protagonist dashes away at light speeds, leaving behind a mortified co-worker to deal with the boss lady and other staff members' judgy expressions. The bustling workday prevents Dan-woo from running into worry so far, worry being the culprit of the infamous hair ruffle from earlier. Our protagonist enjoys his meal break on a bench, but his peace of mind doesn't last long, since he is approached by none other than Worry, holding a milkshake as a peace offering, paired with a renewed apology for the events earlier. Worth mentioning that Worry is a tall young man, athletic figure, bad boy type of face, chiseled but with sweet expressions, dark curly short hair, devilishly handsome. Okay, I admit it, I have a weakness. Don't tell anyone. Moving on. They chat a bit, playfully reprimanding the boss lady for her request regarding Dan-woo's appearance. This lights up the atmosphere, and the guys have a laugh. Woory officially tries to properly introduce himself, even though pointless since he's popular and everyone knows his name. However, to Dan-woo's surprise, Woory also knows his name. Attentive fella we got here. Then he inquires of our protagonist's age, at which he's perplexed to discover he's older than him with his 23 years. He then endearingly asks for permission to call Dan-woo as Hyung, a Korean term similar to older brother. Alas, here it is, such blinding handsomeness. My words don't do him justice. I seem worry, I'm weak. Returning to the story, Woory's bright smile even made our introvert happy of the chat. As Dan-woo cheerfully goes on his way home after his work is done, doom and gloom creeps in when he reaches the hair salon. To avoid having to deal with law enforcement due to not paying, he gathers his ounce of courage and steps in the torture chamber, whispering to make his presence known. Well, if you whisper, odds are you ain't gonna make your presence known. He is greeted, in fact, by no one. Place is empty. Spotting his belongings, he keeps whispering instead of speaking out loud, as if wishing not to face the hairstylist again. Can't blame him. Those blissful hopes are soon shattered by a loud noise, at which he finally speaks clearly the intention to pay, while peeping around to find where the noise came from. His peeping proves fruitful. He does find the hairstylist in the back room, sharing a passionate kiss with some guy. Our introvert reacts with his typical shocked face in confusion. No surprise there. We're used to it by now. The unknown guy addresses the hairstylist as Kwon Tae-han, as the latter glances at Dan-woo. Considering the awkward circumstance, our introvert resigns with the idea of just retrieving his possessions. But Tae-han speaks to him, asking about the gown, provoking an extreme reaction from the other males inside the chamber. The unknown kisser quietly dashes out of the area, clearly unwilling to be recognized considering he is dressed according to the purpose of hiding his identity to bystanders. But in the haste, both him and Dan-woo manage to get a clear view of each other, the kisser seeming familiar to Dan-woo. Tae-han dismisses any friendship ties to the kisser, referring to her as more of a stalker, gratefully thanking Dan-woo for his interrupted visit. Our introvert reaction and eagerness to call the cops for the stalker issue suscitates a laugh out of Tae-han, stating that if that were to happen, he could also report Dan-woo for the previous day events. A fair exchange of payment and gown against wallet and sweatshirt occurs, to the relief of our shy fella. Presuming his arousal from Tae-han's touch went unnoticed yesterday. Playfully, Tae-han teases him about his hair growing very fast, whilst ruffling it and caressing his ear. Of course, Dan-woo becomes a crimson red shade and shaken with both shame and arousal. Tae-han's confession about doing the haircut hastily yesterday in order to prevent lower half bodily juice from bursting out of our protagonists bring utter distress to the latter. He staggers away from the teasing stylist's hand while a satisfied smirk grazes the playful man's face, admitting that he enjoyed Dan-woo's yesterday's display. So much so that he even hands Dan-woo his personal phone number, supposedly to book appointments. As expected, Dan-woo innerly swears never to go back there again. The next day at work, While viciously washing dishes, his thoughts are filled with, well, you guessed it, Taehan, debating whether he is a pervert or not. Seems to me a pot calling kettle situation, but okay, we shall pretend not to have thought that. The day went by at the restaurant and they do the closing preparations. A news broadcast at the TV reveals to Dan-woo who was the kisser/stalker guy. A famous idol named Bae Yeon-woo that just started his career as an actor. While distracted by that thought, he bumps into a co-worker and reciprocal apologies occur. But then the co-worker, with a weird perplexed expression, reaches out to touch Dan-woo's hair. And just then, he appears. My knight in shining armor, my handsome hunk, my angel with drop-dead devilish looks. Well, a girl can dream, can't I? Right? Anyway, back to the story. Worry interferes by separating the two. I mean, his tall figure, it's easy for him to keep the other co-worker at bay. Turns out the fuss was because, when they accidentally bumped into each other, chewing gum flew out of the guy's mouth right onto Dan-woo's hair. Go figure, the dude's really unlucky these days. The panic of the situation makes it look funny to us, the audience. However, Dan-woo is resolute, not accepting help to remove it, and he worsens the situation by a lot trying to handle it himself. Realizing that if he keeps trying to fix it on his own, he'll end up in partial baldness due to his clumsiness and lack of skill in hair-related matters. While going to another salon could get him labeled as a pervert and arrested, he begrudgingly decides to call Taehan. Soon after, at Taehan's salon, he's bored of waiting for Dan-woo's arrival when he notices an anxious protagonist at the door. The scene soon shifts to Dan-woo full of shame sitting in the salon's chair, while mocked and teased by Taehan about the gum, hair, tobacco. He thanks him for the treated laugh, hand settled on Dan-woo's shoulder, and the soft gaze causing yet another reason for a fuming blush to appear on Dan-woo's shy face. He apologizes again for the events of the last haircut, admitting that he had no intention to return before the gun mess arose. Then the conversation shifts to the origin and details related to his arousal reaction when his hair is touched. Apparently, it's been like that since he was a child and became uncontrollable when he hit teenage. Nonetheless, Taehan prefers people with easy-to-read secrets and reactions, just like Dan-woo. Cheeky Taehan, using a little beating around the bush inquiries, manages to find out that our shy introvert has never dated, and himself, intending Taehan, is the first person to touch Dan-woo. Haircut finally begins, with a pleading request from Dan-woo to avoid unnecessary hair touching where possible. Though it kinda landed on deaf ears. In Taehan's opinion, perhaps the overly sensitive situation is due to unintentional abstinence from fellow human touch, and might go away if one gets used to physical contact again. Innerly, the stylist is amused and interested in the whole unusual ordeal involving Dan-woo. Sly as a fox, he suggests, well, better said, impose, testing the trimmer. Dan-woo's reaction on its using? Instant morning flag bulge. A desperate cry for stop ends the trimmer torture device usage. Innerly begging his lower body part to go back to slumber mode, Dan-woo trembles and shakes like a scared puppy, at which Taehan teasingly offers his help and assistance with the unwavering flag situation. As if it wasn't enough, he gives him no break, caressing his neck and hair, tempting him to accept his helping hand. A few tantalizing caresses and some half-cropped images that I can't display fully on YouTube bring our protagonist into a dizzy state, while Taehan single-handedly polishes Dan-Woo's lightsaber, surprised that it's needed more time and effort than he initially presumed. So he proceeds to caress his head, and that seems to do the trick. White, gooey, bodily fluid burst out of the magic rod. A short while later, our protagonists come back to reality after a passing out from pleasure moment, being addressed by Taehan sweetly whilst cutting his hair. Mesmerized by the sight of himself in the mirror, he thinks briefly that the kinky activity from minutes earlier was just a product of his dreams and imaginations. Well, he got some debatable dreams, but okay, buddy. However, his relief is short-lived as he notices residual sticky bodily fluids on his own face and his bits hanging out in the open as soon as the gown was removed. Okay. The sight of such unholiness and splatters also on the mirror makes him swiftly enter tidy up his decorum mode. Stiff and awkward, he pays the hairstylist and concludes his visit at the hair salon with a flash-like dash out of the door. Well, at least he paid this time. Going out shop, Taehan admits that he got carried away. Providing a customer with such extra services is not something he planned beforehand, and now that unexpected turn of events apparently got his fancy triggered. So he looks through his phone in search for contacts that he could reach out to for a last-minute booty call. The scene shifts to Dan-Woo running home, filled with shame and guilt about the evening developments. The next day starts with sunshine and bird chirping, auspicious for a good one. But our guy still has the shame and frustrations lingering from yesterday to keep him company. He's only distracted by the sensation of short hair, which takes him down memory lane, giving us, the audience, a glimpse into his childhood. He always had issues when someone touched his hair, and it caused him distress. So at a certain point, his mom resorted to cutting his hair herself, but clearly it never turned out great. However, being a kid, it wasn't a big deal. Playing would get his hair messy anyway, so it didn't stick out when he was with other kids. But as he started the school years, his messy curly bundle stood out like a sore thumb, and the hair salon trips became unavoidable. Since he was in his early teens already, the sensations were even worse to manage. He was scared and traumatized by this point. As time went by, he discovered that the feeling was actually arousal, when by accident one morning he woke up with a standing tall flag and protein juice smeared on his undergarments. Ah, they grow up so fast! Wink wink. After putting two and two together, he couldn't knowingly go to hair salons no more, or have his mom cut his hair either. I mean, yeah, that'd be weird even for my standards. Conclusion? He started cutting his hair himself, which led to a rapid and unrevocable demise of his school, social life, friendships, and reputations, gaining in exchange being targeted by bullies. While getting ready for work, he ponders how his life could have been if he didn't have the haircuts issue. He moved out on his own when his mother remarried and had difficulty finding jobs due to his unkempt appearance, and when he did find them, he couldn't keep them for long, being mistreated at the current job. Initially, he didn't receive much consideration, which changed in time since he proved himself a diligent employee. His train of thought takes him back to that man, referring to Taehan, of course, who became the first person to know his secret. Well, we can call it weakness or preference, but whatever. The recollection of his comforting words bring a blush to our protagonist's cheeks. Despite the unconventional events occurred. To ease his discomfort, he assumes that it's not just him that is slightly perverted, but also Taehan himself, all things considered. He grabs a cap and places it on his head, not being used to having his face so exposed, and rushes out the door to go to work. Reaching the restaurant, he is greeted by a group of co-workers, presenting him with a video tutorial on how to remove stuck gum from one's hair, with ease. Dan-woo's gloomy reaction is not what the group was expecting to see at the video solution reveal, but all the panicky fuss changes to jaw drops when our guy shows off his freshly short haircut. The object of my simping, Woody, is also in said group, and his stunned face looks great to me. Yep, I shamelessly inserted a simping comment. Deal with it. Hee hee. Well, receiving a plethora of compliments from the staff members gives him under the spotlight dizziness. Even the boss lady praises his newly discovered good looks. Woody asks for his phone number, at which our Dan-woo turns red like a ripe tomato, probably thinking it was out of romantic interest. However, Woody proceeds his request by mentioning the cordial friendly staff relations intent. Worth mentioning, there is a faint shade of pink on Woody's cheeks, and his smile is a bit awkward / shy. I wonder why. After the phone numbers exchange, they awkwardly decide to consider each other as friends. Dan-woo's shy happy face causing a sudden flush on Woody's expression. His heart skipping a beat at the exchange makes Woody wonder why. It ends up that other co-workers also want to have Dan-woo's contact information. Nighttime arrives and we see our protagonist giddy walking home, no cap on to prevent full exposure of his appearance, beaming with satisfaction of the day's events, having gained new friends and increased his workplace social life. Seeing his reflection on a shop window notes how changed he feels, even if physically only his hair is different. He doesn't attract passers-by weird or disapproving looks anymore. He just blends in with everyone else. Well, apart from his shabby clothing. So he decides to go to the mall the next day. And the next day comes, but the confidence of the evening doesn't come with it, so he is awkward and distressed while strolling through the mall. As he is looking around stores, he can't help but notice that on many ad boards for various brands and products, the model is the same guy. A handsome one, of course. The kisser / stalker guy, Bae Yoon-woo. Our protagonist keeps peeping through stores from the entrance in a funny and possibly a tad creepy way. When a hand grabs his shoulder, he jolts from the scare only to discover it was Taehan, sporting a amused smirk. There is still much to happen in this entertaining BL manhwa, but for now, this is where this segment ends. If you enjoyed my recap plus unrequested shameless simp commentary, please consider subscribing, like, share, and comment. You know the drill. It would be very appreciated. In meanwhile, I wish you all a great day. See you on the next one. Thanks for watching!